Welcome, everyone, back to Pulling Threads. I want to give a very warm welcome to my friend and my hairstylist, Chelsea Larkins from the Little Black Door Salon in Tampa. I met Chelsea around 2016, I think, so 9 years.
Yeah.
And she saved me from a bad transition. I had transitioned from blonde to brown, and then I wanted to save my hair and go back to blonde. Chelsea started the process of saving me from all of that and getting me back to healthy hair and beautiful blonde. She has been in my life since, and I couldn't live without her. Welcome to Pulling Threads, Chelsea. Uh,
Thank you.
it's wonderful to have you. Today, we're going to talk about beauty, bravery, entrepreneurship, and how hair and makeup and beauty in general can reflect our healing, identity, and growth. And you are a witness to that probably every day with your clients because you see people through so many life transitions. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Great. It's so good to have you. I think I want to start with your entrepreneurial journey, if that's okay with you. Because when I met you, you were working in a salon. And even in that time period, you went from being an employee to renting a chair. That was kind of your first big step into a little more ownership role. And now you've started your own salon, and that's been a journey.
Mhm.
So, what inspired you to leave an employment role and start your own salon?
For me, it was more of the calling that I felt on my life, like from a young age. Whenever I learned what the word cosmetologist was, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and I said, "That's what I'm gonna be." I always loved hair and makeup. Me and my sister would do makeovers on each other with makeup all the time, and I have an older sister, so I was always sneaking in, kind of using all her makeup when she wasn't looking and wearing it to school. For me, it was always something I felt I was going to do. Owning my own hair salon was a part of that journey. I started out as a front desk coordinator in college at a really nice hair salon in my local town in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I got to understand the workings of front desk, making the perfect appointment, asking certain questions, having consultations over the phone, and being able to book and pick the right stylist for them. And then we also learned a little bit more about inventory and things like that. With that, I was able to carry that into my hair school journey. Whenever I went into hair school, I felt like, wow, this is my tribe. Everyone knew exactly what I was talking about when I would talk about certain makeup, and it was amazing. I actually became valedictorian at my hair school. I just felt like this is where I belong. Everything was flowing so well. Then I worked at a hair salon at the Tampa International Mall, and they told me I was not going to be able to take off holidays or anything like that. And I was like, this isn't going to last very long. But I was trying to build up a clientele. I knew I was going to be there around 8 or 9 months and then transition to hopefully a boutique type salon. The reason I started at the mall salon is because you can get a lot of fast-paced walk-ins, more experience, and it's not super uptight. You get some really basic stuff, your root touch-ups, just your haircuts, a lot of men's styling. And so with that, I was able to probably take around maybe 25, 30 people of those clients with me to my boutique salon in South Tampa where you met me. And then I stayed there for around 4 years or so at that salon, and I really loved it, grew a lot. And then there was a time within that period, towards the end of that period, that 4 year mark, that I was actually able to notice my numbers were consistently hitting a certain amount per week. My take home income was reaching a certain amount per week. I was really, really busy. And there was also a moment whenever I was noticing that I was getting a lot of the clients from my own social media versus the salon giving them to me. I was starting to build my own brand and vibe with my clients and future guests. And so with that, I said, okay, I'm ready to move forward with this booth rent and start to have my own business behind the chair. Booth rent is basically like you have your own chair and then you're responsible for all the expenses that come with that, buying your own color, the rent and everything. And it's a small amount, but it's a big step. that was right around COVID in 2020. It was actually August of 2020 that I made that transition whenever we were all able to start working back. I made that transition to a more independent salon where we were all a tribe of booth renters. And so that was really cool. I also told myself, if I can manage this and have fun with this and it's not overwhelming for me, then that could potentially let me know that I can go to that next step of owning that hair salon. But I also had that conversation with myself that if it wasn't for me, then that's okay. So I was totally fine with that. But it turned out that I really loved it. I loved looking at the numbers. I loved doing my personal marketing. I loved having control of the way that I could package certain services for my guests and create my prices. And so after about 3.5 years of owning my own small chair business, that's whenever I started looking into creating a business plan with a local startup company in South Tampa. And they helped me curate my business plan. It took me about a year and a half to find my actual brick and mortar space. Then I was ready to go and moved into my little like toy salon.
What were the scariest and most empowering moments in the beginning?
I think some of the scariest parts were the waiting period early on. Once we finished the business plan, I tried to get a business loan of $250,000 with SBA. I went to my bank and they turned me down. It was actually a blessing because I don't have any debt or overhead like that, which is great. I thought there were a lot of things I needed for my business to excel, but I actually didn't need. A lot of things too was the patience. Another hard thing for me was the patience it took because during that waiting period, I was looking at commercial spaces on LoopNet, which is a site where you can look at all the different commercial spaces in your local area. A lot of the rent was around triple net leases, around 6,500, 7,000 in South Tampa. Not only that, but you have to think about the startup of the remodeling of your space. So that was the toughest part, waiting for the space and kind of figuring out, and really for me, reflecting and praying on, okay, is this a space? Is it not? And every time I felt like, okay, this is the space, I would have a heartbreak because I would get really excited. And then something would happen where it was a closed door. But eventually, when I found this space, it was a moment where I said, I'm not really going to look as much. I'm just going to dabble and look back and forth randomly on LoopNet. I'm not trying to make this happen as much as I was. And then when I did it in passing, like maybe once or twice every month, that's whenever I found the space and I found it for a lower amount than I was expecting to find in South Tampa. It was already a pre-existing salon, so the plumbing was already there. And then it all just kind of happened. But I think those were the toughest moments, was the patience that it took, and then that probably that time frame of whenever I was really wanting it to happen, but it just wasn't happening as quickly as I wanted it to.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And that is frustrating. But I think a lot of people lose patience and lose sight of the goal or give up or rush something and pay more than they should, than they could
Yeah.
afford. So the patience, like, and to me, in my words, I would say you started just
Yeah.
trusting this is going to come. I don't need to force it. Things always come when we're not forcing them. The minute we let go and say, okay,
Yeah.
this place is gonna find me. I'm gonna just let go, let God, the universe, whomever, I know in your world, God, let God take over. And when the time is right, it will come.
Yeah.
So that is such a human battle we have of just letting go. But
Yeah.
time and time again, I hear stories and in my own life, the minute I let go, whatever I need and want appears.
It's crazy. The letting go thing is so hard because like it goes against everything we want to do and try to, especially as women, to try to control the situation, be like, no, but the minute we do let go, it frees up your mind and your stress, and then it happens. So it's great.
I feel like that happened with you and with your husband also, right?
Oh, it
You
did. It
kind of let
did.
go and he walked into that first salon or second salon.
Yeah.
Yes. So how has it been? You've done this all with him by your side and you got married in that same window of time that you were starting the salon. So you're planning a
Yeah.
wedding and you did that your own way, which I love. But how was it? Starting the business and having a supportive partner, like, would you say that would be a big part of how you got there? I know you could have done it on your own, but maybe it was
And
easier.
so, you know, I think that we weren't engaged yet. Maybe we were, because there was that moment whenever it wasn't open yet. But the thing that comes into my mind is that it was really hard on us. That's what I wanted to be real about. For me, I felt like this was something that I couldn't control. It was a calling, something that I had literally worked my way up throughout the years from front desk worker to wanting to follow this dream. And it seemed like everything lined up so well for me to take this leap. I saw it clearly in my head as the visionary or the entrepreneur, but Ryan believed in me. But there was a moment whenever he was just in this protection mode where he was like, okay, well, if everything goes wrong, who's like with opening this space and it doesn't work out, or there's a recession, or there's this inflation, or whatever with the economy. There were a lot of questionable things whenever we were opening or around that time of year. And he was in a lot of fear, honestly.
Yeah.
He was in a lot of fear and he had his own journey, but it also kind of came into my journey too, where it was somebody that was wanting to be there for me and actually helped me with a lot of the demo. There were these salon stations, and I told him, take a sledgehammer and let out some steam. I said, guess what? People pay to do that, and
Yeah.
because there's those like crash places or
Yeah.
whatever.
Smash rooms.
Just go in there. And when I look back on that time, it was like he was supporting me in the best way that he knew how. But there was also a lot of moments where I was keeping everything to myself, and the business people that I had helped to curate those roles to be more of that other support system where I could talk about different things with. So I knew that what I found to be healthiest for us during that time was to compartmentalize and just
Mhm.
tell him certain things, but not every single fear I had because of seeing the way he was dealing with it. For him, it was more of a financial fear just
Yes.
because of taking such a huge risk with my own money. That's what I used. I used my own cash for this. And he looks at us, even at that time, as a team and as someone he knew that no matter what, he would have to be the one to help me or save me if something didn't work out, which I respect and appreciate, but I knew that it was always going to work out.
Right. Right. I love that you were being honest and real about it because it could be this dream. Oh, he was so supportive and he was right there. But we're all humans. When we're in partnership with someone else's nervous system, trauma, past, abundance or lack mentality. They come with a whole different set of experiences and inner workings that don't always line up with ours. And he couldn't possibly have had the same vision as you. When we close our eyes and we picture our business and our life, we do have a tendency to get really clear on it when we're doing the work. We have to understand that not everyone who loves us can see. And some people are wired to think of all the worst case scenarios. I love that you compartmentalized and you knew that this relationship isn't going anywhere and it means a lot to me, but I have other support systems in place to help me with the business fears that I have because I cannot share them with him. It would be counterproductive. I think that is just a really great observation, and it was played very well by
Thank you.
you. It's something I think people can really learn from because we kind of want our romantic partner to be everything to us.
Yes,
People aren't equipped to be everything. The greatest gift we can give our relationship is to understand what people are, how people can support us, where they can show up and where they can't, and find additional resources to help us in the areas that our partner can't.
absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself.
If you were giving advice to a young woman who is thinking about stepping into entrepreneurship and opening her own business, and she has her dream salon or boutique store or whatever, what advice, just simple advice, would you give?
The best advice that I would give, because I had a friend who was wanting to open up her own Pilates wellness studio in St. Pete. The best advice that I gave to her was, let's sit down and look at your numbers, whether it's someone who is already an entrepreneur who's working a business, or maybe someone who has a startup lab that you can go and brainstorm with. Find someone you know is doing well or know that is doing something that maybe you want to do, and sit down with them and go through the numbers first. And that's really the biggest thing to start with, because then you know, okay, what is it going to take to make this place operate? So that's one thing that we looked at together, she and I, was okay. And I actually brought up a lot of my own numbers. Every business pretty much needs Wi-Fi, electric. So all of those things, we looked at the rent. Okay, so then we looked at the amount of square footage that you would want. And then I helped her look at the different commercial sites and figure out her space on the amount of square footage that she would need, what would her rent look like for that kind of space. So just diving into what your monthly expenses are going to look like, how much you would need to generate in your sales to, either break even or actually make a profit, and how long it would take you building out one of those pro forma sheets where you can build it out for at least a year to kind of think, okay, how long is it potentially going to take me? It's not going to be
Mhm.
spot on, but how long is it potentially going to take me to excel? And then how many people would I need to work with me to create that? And then also, how much is the demo going to be, the startup cost of this? So I
Right.
think when you're looking at all of that stuff, because of course, entrepreneurs are people that have an idea. Of course, we're thinking of, and this, I'll just speak for myself. I'm thinking of, oh, this light fixture, and then it's going to be beautiful. We're all walking around doing our jobs, and it's like this great vibe. But then you also have to get into the nitty-gritty of looking at how much it's going to take to operate and stuff like that. When you do that, then you can realize, actually, I need about 2 years under my belt to save, or I need to start looking into some sort of loan, and then what is the interest rate and the payback going to look like? So that's kind of the advice that I gave her.
Great. Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't like to think about those things, but it's really important. Even like how many
absolutely.
clients are you going to need in order to make this work? And it's going to take time to find those clients. I mean, I'm going through that now. If I'm going to pay this much rent on a space, how many clients do I need to have to just pay the rent?
Yeah.
My overhead costs, of course, are not what yours are, because I don't, it's just me.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
but Pilates studio, there are a lot of things that you need and a lot of equipment. So that's great advice.
Thank
I,
you.
I want to shift gears a little bit. Something that I feel like I've evolved in is really my thoughts, perceptions, and views on my own beauty as an empowering feature of myself and accepting it as empowerment and not vanity. Okay. For me, hair has always been a way to express myself and feel tied to who I am. Even as a high schooler, I had big hair and it was permed. I always wanted it long and lush, and I saw it as part of my identity. And you said something to me recently because I considered going brunette, my natural color. And
Mm.
you gave me a lot, you gave me a lot of great advice. And we did a whole thing where we colored my root, which was a great exercise because then I could see my sparkle and how that was going to show up. And I
Yep.
quickly realized that I don't like the sparkle showing up. So we just did this beautiful blonde. But you said something that really resonated, and I keep saying it to myself, and I've even said it to friends. You said to think about my identity and how being a blonde versus being a brunette would feel. Like, how attached am I to this blonde hair, and how much is it a part of my identity? And that was huge because I kind of embraced the Barbie these last few years post therapy, whereas before I used to be like, I am not a Barbie. I am more than just
Hmm.
a blonde. And now I'm like, no, hell yes, I'm a Barbie. Like,
Woo!
Barbie's awesome. Barbie can do anything. Barbie is the ultimate entrepreneur. I feel like hair can be a really beautiful way to express our freedom and show our confidence. And it's a reflection oftentimes of what we're going through in our life. I even chopped it once right before starting my divorce process. And I went short, blunt bob, and it was adorable. I'm going to try to pin these pictures up because it was so cute and so empowering. I was like, yes, I'm going to get a haircut from me. And at that point, that's what I wanted. And we went platinum. Why do you think beauty and especially hair is so deeply tied to our identity?
I was thinking about that question, and I honestly think it kind of goes back to what I read in a Cosmo magazine. It was actually a book that this ex-boyfriend gave me. And it said something about even back in prehistoric times, men would look at women for their hair to see if it had a lot of shine, length, volume, to say, okay, that person's a good mate, that person's healthy. So I think that it almost goes back to a deeper primal thing within us when we see someone who has beautiful and specifically shiny, healthy hair. It almost makes us think, wow, okay. It's hard to explain because I think that it is something that just kind of goes back with something inside of us. But I think that hair also becomes a huge identity too, because, for example, there was a moment whenever I was in college and I took dark brown box color and I colored my hair with box color. And, it was like I was going through a breakup and I did the box color and it was shiny for maybe a couple weeks. And the thing with box color is then it gets really dull and gross looking. And I just remember thinking, this isn't me. I'm a blonde. I think it also comes down to a showcase of your personality too,
Yeah.
which is basically what you and I spoke about. And that's something that hit home to you. Brunettes have a certain persona, which is beautiful. And it's this dark, luscious, sultry. And then it's like blondes have like this bubbly, light, airy kind of like, so it's like there's this whole vibe that goes with them.
I remember when I first went blonde, I was like, oh, this is more fun. This is
Mm,
way more fun. But I have found that it brightens me up too. I felt as time went on, my hair color, as I've gotten older, my natural color has gotten more and more dull. So the
yeah.
blonde makes me feel brighter and all of that. I think when we're very, very young, we might latch on to it. Some of us, I certainly did. What's
Mm.
interesting was I was blonde until I was about three,
Eh,
turned brunette, but my sister was blonde, and everyone always commented on how she had such beautiful blonde hair and big blue
oh.
eyes. So there was probably an early identity thing, like it's better to be blonde. Now I think I've let all of that go and I just like it. As a stylist, you often play the role of therapist, coach, listener. People must walk in all the time and vent. So, a few questions about that because you've seen me go through a life transition. I'm not the only client you have, so you probably see clients transforming all the time. Do you see a connection between an improvement in someone's mental health, their state of mind, and life circumstances, and their physical transformation? Could be hair, could be something else. Do you see any connection between physical appearance
Yeah.
and where they're at in their life?
I feel like I absolutely do. A lot of my guests that see me have been seeing me for at least 6 years. Someone can be coming to me for maybe 3 months, 6 months, even a year, and I still feel like they're kind of a new client to me. It's those long-term relationships that I feel like, oh, this is my client. This is because those are the ones that I've seen their journey, and I feel like they've been able to open up to me over time. And it's not just about the consultation in the beginning that we have, the deep consultation about what are we going to do? What are we looking to do? What's the hair plan? What's the journey with your hair? I'm always trying to keep that fresh, but it's also about when we start the process, maybe we're foiling, we're coloring, whatever it is, it's usually going to take at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. And of course, there's those longer appointments too. For me as a stylist, it's asking all those open-ended questions. I always try to tell my W-2 employees and myself to really focus on being a vessel and of service.
Mm.
Whenever we're behind the chair, our goal, my personal goal, and what I try to implement to my team is be of maximum service. And you're there to be anything you can for that person in front of you. And so I have had people cry in my chair, not for their hair, but kind of going through things, and I've had to give them a Kleenex, maybe stop the service and check in on them. I've had people who walk in and immediately start crying. And it's usually people who've been with me a long time, and they're
Right.
like, this is what's going on. I had one client specifically who she told me, you are my longest relationship I've ever had. And that touched me to the core.
Wow.
She said, out of men, friendships, whatever, you are my longest. She said, you always make me happy. She said, you never let me down. You're always professional. You're always on time. And she said, you're always there. I was like, my God.
Wow.
And that consistency, bringing it back to my guests. And to your question, it's a loaded question, but I can definitely see a journey with their hair whenever they're going through different life experiences, not only from the emotion that they're showing me and the story that they're telling me whenever we're doing the process, but also whether they're getting a lot of extensions and changing up their look, or whether they're switching up their color or cutting their hair. Maybe they just had a baby and they're like, you know what, my baby is tugging my long hair and I want to do a bob. So just little things like that that actually make so much sense that we see as they move forward in their lives. Like, okay, I'm actually having a shorter hairstyle for function now, which is really cool and beautiful because it's about their baby. So, yeah, I think hair definitely correlates with people's lives.
Are there times when people walk in, you know that they are going through something and they want to do something drastic and you make them wait, or you suggest that they wait?
I've always said whenever I was in this industry that I was going to try to give people what they wanted, because it was so frustrating whenever I would ask my stylist, hey, I want to do this. And they would say, no, I'm going to do everything but color your hair black. They would always set these limits. So I always try to stay focused on that and have open conversations with my clients whenever I know that maybe they're going through something and they're wanting to make a big change. I say, look, if you really want me to do this, I will do it today, 100%. But I'm bringing up all of those little things and scenarios that can potentially happen because I feel like it's my duty to bring up my experience within the industry and from all the different clients I've had to share those stories and experiences so they can make a justified decision. One thing I like to do when people are asking me for something like that is, say if someone is really blonde and they're wanting to go full brunette, I'll say, let's start with some lowlights. We bring them halfway down and still leave the blonde down here, which will help you not to feel super dark. Maybe we tone your blonde a little bit. And that's just a certain situation where I bring that up to kind of start them gradually in that process and then say, and then if this feels good to you, then next time we can even go darker and go full throttle, but you may find that this is a lot for you. And then
Right.
maybe we transition you back into a brighter blonde. I'll try to use tact and do a little bit, and then that makes them feel really good. And then we can always do more the next time.
That makes sense. And I think when I've wanted to chop my hair off before, which we have done multiple times,
Hmm.
or cut my extensions, you're like, let's go a little bit at a time, or let's wait, see next time if you're still in the mood. I have a tendency to tell you on the visit, and I'll say, I think the next time I'm going to. That way, because I already know the drill. Like, we got to think about this and make sure, because if I'm on an emotional wave, we don't want to do something that I will later regret because I'm going through something. That is an advantage you have with clients you've had for a long time versus a brand new person walking in and saying, I want to chop off my hair. Have you ever had an experience with a new client that came in and did something and then they regretted it?
I don't really think they necessarily regretted it, but maybe there was a form of like, you don't always vibe with somebody and they don't always vibe with you. I heard this quote once from another hairstylist, and it said something like, I have been known to be the best stylist ever, and then I have been known to be the worst stylist ever. To me, that rang true because I always like to, I never say this on social media, but I tell this to my team. We're not robots. We're not a machine. Statistically, I'm going to do something, whether you've been coming to me for 10 years, maybe it's your first visit. Statistically, I'm going to do something along the way where I'm not exactly perfect for somebody. And maybe I go a little shorter than they wanted to. Maybe I go a little darker than they wanted because I am not a machine and maybe not necessarily make someone extremely happy with the service. But just knowing that, it's like, I'm human and that's okay. You have to allow yourself that grace with whatever industry you're in. If you're telling yourself, I'm not a machine, I can't 100% do it every single time perfect, and you give yourself that grace, then you can move forward and I'm always trying to give 100% my best every single time. But maybe there's a disconnect that happens every now and then. It's usually never anything major, but.
That's great advice to anyone. We're all
Mhm.
human. We are not machines. We are not
Mhm.
going to get it right 100% of the time, but we can learn from it. And I'm sure that you do an incredible job of doing whatever you can to make that person, if you went a little too short, like you can't grow the hair back, but there may be other things that you can do. And I know that you go above and beyond always. Hair is very much tied to a lot of people's emotions. There certainly are people out there who don't care, but it can be a very emotional thing. And it can make us feel really amazing and magical too. Like, I, because you're my stylist, I feel like my hair is pretty amazing most of the time
Mm.
until day 7 when it needs to be washed. And then I do braids. But even then, I'm like, it's over.
Yeah.
So, but when I'm nearing my time to get it touched up, there is a difference, like versus the day after I've just gotten it done. I feel like we've got our numbers down now, so we know when to get me in. But I guess what I'm saying is it can make us feel really good and bring us a
Yeah.
lot of joy.
And what's crazy is that even with men, which the beauty industry doesn't focus on with hair, hair is such a big deal for my male guests. And a lot of my male guests actually get color.
Yeah.
So I don't really service a lot of just regular cuts anymore with my men. Usually I'm giving those over to my W-2 employees, but I do have about 5 or 6 men who get color and cut. It makes them feel a certain way, especially attorneys when they're having to show up. And most of these men are getting it done every 2 weeks.
Wow.
It means a lot to them too. I mean, hair is such a big deal for men.
I had no idea. I've seen people coming in to see you for color, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize there was such a demand for it. Yeah, we won't get into hair replacement, but there is a huge industry in that for a reason.
Absolutely.
When you have people in your chair who are sharing, everyone is going through something, right? Even if it's just getting a phone call about their kid being sick or someone texting them and they're like, oh, I got to deal. That's a lot of energy in and out of your chair. Like, what do you do to protect your own energy and your own mental health when day in and day out, you're not only running a business and being an entrepreneur, but you are not a trained therapist? You may feel like it someday, but you're not.
Yeah.
What do you do to protect your energy from everything that's walking through the door?
Well, I think one of the first thing that comes to my mind is we have a break room. And one thing that I learned early on when I was in hair school, there was this teacher, we called him learning leaders, and he was probably about 70 years old. And he taught me so much business skills that I use today. One of the things that he taught us was whenever your guest is processing, try not to get into the habit of sitting there and talking with them intimately for the full 25 to 30 minutes. He said, first of all, you have things to do. You got to clean your bowls. You got to get ready for the next step in their process. You got to check the laundry, do the task. Like there's a bunch of stuff happening outside of when you guys are just getting your hair. There's a lot of like backhand
Right.
things that are happening, not even as a business owner, but just as a regular stylist. if you do get into the habit of talking with them during that processing time, the one time that you don't do that, they're going to think, where is she? Why
Right.
isn't she coming and talking to me? What's going on? Is she upset with me? Whatever. If you start off with that expectation of, okay, I'm going to let you relax. I'm going to check back in with you in about 10 to 15 minutes, always communicating and always showing up, but giving them. So I think one of the things to answer your question is making sure throughout the whole process that as a stylist, you have personal time and space to whether you maybe eat a little protein snack or have your lunch, drink some water, hydrate yourself because of those long services.
Right.
And also, like I said, we have a break room for a reason. So a lot of fellow stylists, we go back there and we say, hey, you won't believe what just happened to me. And we're not necessarily spilling hot tea or get messy back there, but we're able to say, hey, I have this really big project right now. I'm really stressed about what formula do you think I should use? And being able to talk about that kind of stuff behind the scenes so that we can be there for each other and help give each other confidence outside of being around the client, stuff that you wouldn't necessarily want to share right there in front of your client.
Yeah.
So I think that those things all kind of combine. But then the last thing I'll say to answer your question is that for me, it's also being able to come home and having a good work-life balance, which is what I try to tell my W-2 employees. When someone's constantly texting you and asking you, when you start giving out your contact information and clients are feeling like they are able to text you all the time, that's fine. But then say, hey, right now, I will reach out to you first thing in the morning when I get back into the salon. If you need my booking link, here it is. And I've never had anyone be upset with me whenever I've said something like that. It's
Right.
the way that you say it to them, and it's also saying, hey, right now it's 7:30 at night. I'm eating my dinner. You don't have to say all that, but you can say, hey, as of right now, I don't have my system in front of me. When I get back to the salon first thing at 9:30 in the morning, I'm going to take a look at your appointment. I can fix that for you.
That's perfect. That's good boundary setting with your clients. Yeah.
Boundaries.
Yes. Boundaries are everything. And you
Mm,
take really good care of yourself outside of the salon too, which is necessary for your physical health. Like you work out, keep your arms strong. Your job
yeah.
is very physical. But then I think there's also a huge release. It's good for your mental health when you're working out and eating right and those kind of things. And making time for
Yeah.
you take time off when you need it, things like that. So you make
Yeah.
space and time for your family when they come into town and Ryan and
Yes.
Queen.
Love her. So, really quick, one day after work, I looked at my steps and I didn't even work out that day. And I had a 12,000 steps just from working a 7 to 8 hour shift. Yeah.
Wow.
So, it's a workout just being in there. But then when you add on your workout on top of it, you're like, whoa, the workout obviously makes me feel better. Like you said, it's for the mental health, but I just think it's crazy. I tell people this is a very physical job.
Right. Well,
So,
I think it's physical and it can be mentally taxing on top of being a business owner and an
yeah.
entrepreneur. You've got to give yourself a lot of self-care. What is one thing that you have learned from a client, like something that a client has said to you or an experience you've had with them that has really stuck with you?
There's this one specific experience that comes to mind. It was with this client, and I won't say her name, but she was with me for a really long time. And then I kind of stopped working Saturdays, so that kind of messed up our schedule, which is fine. She kind of was very intuitive into the sense that she could kind of like look into the future a little bit. And she was a lot of dreams, like she would have a lot of dreams where things would come to her. And I remember one time, this was whenever I was like really working on my business plan and wanting to open up my salon. She told me, she projected into my life of like, hey, I see something big happening for you. I see a big success. And she would just do this stuff randomly, or I would tell her about what this dream I had, and she would say, oh, do you know what that means? And she would start telling me. And we actually had a lot in common. We really got to know each other really well. She was actually a massage therapist too, and she worked at Moffitt. So she was massaging people who were very sick and helping them find a moment of peace in something really normal, just an actual massage. I think that specific person really kind of sticks out to me because she was telling me my future and stuff. So it was really cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And maybe gave you hope and like could see. that there was something else coming. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Anybody that you come in contact with where you can just receive from them, that's really powerful. Like you're
Hmm.
there to serve them, but then they end up giving you these little nuggets, little gifts.
Yes.
What do you love about your life right now?
I really love my home. So that's like my number one thing right now is I really love being a homeowner and I didn't realize how much I was going to love it until it really happened. It was something I was working towards saving up for a very long time. I walk around our whole community and I take an hour walk and sometimes tears stream down my face because I'm in so
Mm.
much gratitude and prayer thinking thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for this home, for these blessings, for my business and everything like that. Staying in a moment of gratitude has really helped me be so grateful for the home that I have. It's like an oasis, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So we're 30 minutes out of South Tampa. So which is kind of what we were looking for, Ryan and I, because just to be a little bit more around nature. Other than the home, I think that I'm really liking where my mindset is right now with the business this year. I didn't really tell a lot of my clients I was doing this. It's not something when I'm making a big change or a switch, I don't really say it up front to all my
Right.
guests. I just kind of implement it. And then if someone asks me, I'll like share a little bit about it. But I
Right.
did make a schedule switch for my mental health. Last year, I was working 6 days straight sometimes at a time. I was working Monday through Saturday, only off on Sunday, and I was doing that at least 3 weeks out of the month. It was just so much on me. And so this year, I decided to, in January, I implemented working Monday through Thursday and then off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then there's some random Saturdays that kind of pop up, and they're usually like once every 3 or once every 2 months that I'll randomly take for someone. There's one specific person who's been with me for like 8 years. She's a mom, and I don't tell her that I'm doing that for her. I just
Right.
show up and do it because she would hate that. So having that extra free time, like you were saying, has been really, really great. It helps to restore my sanity and it gives me more time to nourish my relationship with Ryan or make a phone call to my mom or dad and be more present for the relationships in my life. And also to be here with my dog. I hate when I feel like the little dog is just waiting for you and you're never there.
Right.
It's
Right.
so sad. So I think those are the things that I'm really happy about right now.
You kind of just answered the next question that I was going to ask you, but I'm going to ask anyway. How do you feel that you've grown since opening the salon?
I think I've grown in like literally every single aspect really in my life. I mean, honestly, like my relationship with Ryan, my relationship with God, everything has changed so much. My perspective, my gratitude, and the trust that I have to have every single day, not only in my team, but when I'm not there, having faith that it's still going to be okay. There's that whole fear if something breaks down and I'm not there,
Be able to handle it.
it takes me 30 minutes to get there. I would say the way that I've changed, though, is my resilience and strength. Realizing that I was actually a lot stronger than I thought I was, and being able to handle a lot of things that I really did not expect. Like, we had to get a brand new HVAC, which was right around $6,500 last January. And I got into the salon and after a couple of months of having it, we realized we need a whole new HVAC. We didn't know about it because it was up on the roof and it was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And so it was like one of those things where I wish that I would have looked into beforehand, but I didn't know until I knew.
Right.
And so that was really scary, especially after all the money you put in for startup. You get afraid trying to keep a straight face or not like a regular face of not worry in front of all my clients, like everything's fine.
Yeah.
When inside I was so stressed out, but just learning that I can actually handle things a lot better than I ever thought I could.
Yeah.
So I think strength and resilience and knowing that I have more faith in myself.
I love that. I feel like you're very creative with the salon, always coming up with new ideas to make things more interesting or
Mm.
provide different services for clients. So, what are your dreams for the salon? If you could picture it 5 or 10 years from now, like what would your dream for the little black door salon be?
I think that my dream for the salon is that every chair is occupied with a stylist and a client in it from start to finish of every single day. Because right now we have a lot of people who are part-time, which is great, but sometimes the chair isn't occupied Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's only occupied Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Mhm.
So when someone comes in on Monday, it looks like that chair isn't being used. It actually is, but only Thursday, Friday, Saturday. For me, if someone comes in on a Thursday, that's our busiest day. And people are like, whoa, this place is popping. I love it. And I want this to be like this every day. I like that energy. I also have another stylist who's like, I actually like Mondays because my clients find it more calm in here and that it's more relaxing and intimate. I think that my goal and dream for the salon is to grow, to build awareness, have stylists who want to stay, and consistently have guests who want to continue to come because they love our work, our personalities, and what we're trying to provide to them.
Love that. That.
Thanks.
All right, two questions. One, if you could give your younger self a message, and you can choose any age for this one, what would it be?
Hmm. Oh my gosh. If I could choose to tell my younger self something, I would say stay strong, keep working hard, and trust more.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay, this one you may have to think about for a second, so take your time. When you were, let's say 21, I'm just gonna pick
Mhm.
21, early 20s, and you thought to yourself, someday I'm gonna have it all. What would be the difference between what 21-year-old Chelsea thought having it all meant versus now?
Well, what's crazy is that I've actually kind of thought about this recently, but not necessarily in those words. I've looked at my life and I've said, this is pretty much everything that I would have wanted. I know a lot of people will do that and then they still feel like an emptiness or a hole within themselves. But I feel for me, the material things are fun. And my relationship with Ryan is amazing because there's true love there and the love is deep. The wholeness that I get in my heart from the relationship I have with my higher power that keeps continuing to give me the humility to just continue to be present in each moment and to know that this could all go away. Knowing that nothing is guaranteed helps me to hold on and stay very humble and in gratitude for everything that I have. So to answer your question, I mean, honestly, this is kind of how I wanted, my life to go. Have a salon, be married, be in love, and travel. I think I am where I've always wanted to be. The toughest part is continuing to hold on to those things you've been blessed with. That was the big learning experience for me. After about 6 or 7 months of having the salon, it was really hard. The first year was the hardest. I remember hearing this voice telling me, now I'm going to show you, you've gotten your dreams, you've gotten your husband, you have your salon. Now I'm going to show you how to hold on to those things and how to continue to keep those things, which is actually a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's actually really hard to continue, whether it's with my love life, to continue to make time for each other and treat each other like we're on a first date still, or whether it's with the salon, showing up in a positive way for them. Because as a business owner, I don't really feel like I can have an off day. I feel like I need to show up and be the inspiration. That's a part of my job title that I take seriously. I try to go in there being as strong and as confident and as happy as I can for my stylist. So I think it's just continuing to hold on to the things that I've been blessed with.
Beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
21-year-old Chelsea would think that you did a pretty good job.
You're gonna make me cry.
She would be proud.
I
Yay.
know, and I don't think about that enough.
Yeah, I think we all have a different journey. I think 21-year-old Leslie would be like, what? You're doing
Yeah.
that's different than what I thought we were going. I remember thinking in August of 2023. Someone else might have been like, poor Leslie. I had just moved into my very own house. I was a few months post-divorce, new relationship. Kids were starting school that year and were on track. I remember thinking, now I have everything I needed. And now it seems a little crazy because I was so early in that relationship, but I was so open and ready to love that I was in love, like
Oh,
really in love. And I loved my house and I loved having my own space, even though it wasn't complete. It needed furniture and decorating, and the backyard was just grass. And so there were more hurdles and things to create here, but it was mine. And it felt incredible. I remember just thinking, now I have it all. And that is a question I've been asking myself. The question of how does our definition of all change over time is something that I've asked for probably almost 20 years. I'm always thinking about it like, this feels like it all. This is what it would be for me now, like it's always evolving. And it's interesting because I think for in someone else's perspective at that moment in time would not have seen me as having it all. We have to hold that definition and that feeling within ourselves and let it evolve without judgment or
yeah,
outside influence. The whole idea is to get rid of our programming and stop worrying about the way society, culture, or even religion or our family says we should be living, and instead live our own authentic life. So
yeah.
you are doing that, and it seems like you always kind of have.
Thank you. I want to say that I feel like I could definitely see your perspective on what you're sharing about your life and your journey with just the amount of time that I've known you. I saw someone that was blooming whenever you were going through what society would say would be a hard time, like a divorce or something like that. You were going through a lot of different emotions, but I saw a rebirth. So maybe people would think, oh, divorce, but it's about your inner person, your inner spirit. And I definitely see someone who has more joy, who seems more free. I see a happiness and a lightness too. And I think it's really cool. And I'm happy for you.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I think we have to let go of any predefined notions of the way we're supposed to live, and like living inside the box is always going to feel constraining or restraining. So I definitely have stepped far outside the box and I'm just living my life the way that I
Yeah.
want. Along those lines, I wanted to ask you about something that I previously went through, even though I've always invested a lot, I think, in my appearance. So for me, it's always been important to look the way I feel. So putting time and money and effort into my hair, my skin, my body, and just always feeling as vibrant as I feel inside has been really important. However, before I really started on my therapy and healing journey, I felt a lot of shame around spending money and the time on even having hair extensions. I felt like it was fake. I had all these stories and words in my mind about I was bad or vain for spending time and money on beauty and myself. And now I absolutely do not feel that way. I feel like I invest in myself in the way that makes me feel good, and that anything we do that makes us feel genuinely good. I'm not talking
Mhm.
about drugs and addictive
Amen.
behaviors. I think anything we do that makes us feel good about ourselves is positive, and we can let go of all these stories that we tell ourselves. I don't want to exclude people who don't spend a lot of money. Some of the most beautiful women I know do not need to wear any makeup. And we all know women who could shave their heads and still be stunning and present as this vibrant, healthy, beautiful person. So
Mhm.
I'm definitely not saying it's necessary, but I'm talking about the people like me who want to make this investment. It means something to me and it helps me show up the way that I feel. Like the way I look is a reflection of how I feel mentally and physically. So, what would you say to someone who feels guilty for investing their time and money in their appearance?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, and thank you for sharing that. You said that so well. I think there's a deeper thing there, and I'm glad you're bringing up that topic. The first thing that comes to my mind with your experience is very simple. Pick three. I have this conversation with my guests a lot, especially if they're thinking about extensions or whatever, and they're thinking about their budget. I very upfront with all my guests about before we get started, this is about how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take, or whatever. Those are always the things that I always want to be super upfront with, time and money. So, but I always tell my guests and pick three. So what that means is I feel like with the beauty industry, you can get your lashes, eyebrows, a spray tan, your hair done, professional waxing, laser, Botox. The list goes on for women. You can have a blow dry membership. You can have a makeup membership. You can like it goes on and on. Like that's like 10 right there that we can. And it's like, okay, wow, if try to do all these things, I'm drowning and I don't feel like I'm doing enough, one. And I feel like all my money is going away too. That's the shame that we may feel. So I always say pick three that you want to invest in that'll make you feel good. So for me, it's my nails, my skincare routine, and my Botox. I get that done once every 6 months. It wears off after 4 months, and then I go a month on month five where I don't have anything, it's all
Right.
gone, but I'm just kind of rocking it. And then at that 6 month mark, I'm like, yay, as a stylist, we don't have to worry about that as
Right.
much. I'm always big on budget, and it's like, maybe start, and if you can't do three, maybe start with two. Whether it's, hey, I always like to have my nails done. I always feel more polished in the corporate world when I just get gel on my nails. They don't look all chipped. So maybe starting with that. And then maybe you're someone who likes to get routine haircuts once every 3 or 4 months, spend a little bit of money on your hair. But I will say on the flip side of that is think about the person who, let's say stereotypically, maybe they are depressed or they're going through something
Right.
really terrible and maybe they always are wearing their hair up, they don't have any makeup on. Maybe they've gained a little bit more than they would like to. They're not exercising, getting vitamin D outside and investing in their physical appearance in that way. They're not going to feel that great about themselves. And then you go into another shame spiral. So
Right.
which one do you want? The one that's going to make you look a little bit better?
Yeah.
There's both.
Sides to it. I remember when I was in graduate school as a speech pathologist, and I had a really incredible professor who was an extremely intelligent woman that I connected with about neuroscience. So she was like my fave. She would say to dress up for exams, like dress professional. She pointed out we are more confident in whatever we're doing when we look confident and we've dressed up. So she'd be like, you're going to fix your hair. She wasn't saying you need to be a beauty queen, but she was like, you're not going to come in your sweats. Your mental state is different in your sweatpants versus your business suit.
Yeah.
So if you want to do well on this exam, come in your A game. I've, of course, shared that with my 14-year-old, and she hasn't bought into it yet. But I continued to practice that. When I would sit through the long, tedious law school exams, I I was a much older law student. I did not have a great memory, so I had to work hard to pass those exams. Your whole grade is based on an exam. I was one of the only people who would arrive dressed up. I did really well on all of my exams. I think my appearance really helped myself. When I looked in the mirror, I felt confident. So it's true. It's definitely true. Having had children, and each time I just laughed because I walked past a store named J. Jill, and they have all the comfortable, baggy clothes. And that's where I shopped after Ella and Jack. And I look at it now and I'm like, oh my God. I can't believe I wore those clothes. But they were kind of frumpy. Like they have beautiful clothes too, but it definitely was not a reflection of who I am at all. I was hiding. I was hiding. So our appearance is important and it does reflect where we are mentally. I was hiding, not feeling good about myself. And when I look back, that was not a great time in my life.
Yeah.
And so now I've embraced my curves. I'm rocking
Mm,
the extensions forever. I'm probably never living without them again.
yep.
And I'm choosing that.
Right, right. Yeah.
It is a choice, and it's not a
Hmm.
choice that everyone needs to make or that everyone needs, right?
Yep.
I think the problem, if there is one, is when we shame women for taking care of themselves. If it makes you feel good, do it
Yep. 100%.
and let go of all the other stories in your mind and just let yourself be.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, we always plan date night on here.
Right. That's
Because
awesome.
Frank also loves it. Do you think that younger women now, I'm a Gen Xer, you're a millennial?
I think I'm a millennial.
Yeah, I think you're a millennial. Do you think younger women embrace their beauty and they hold it more sacred or they feel less of the shame than older? Like I know where my shame around it came from. We were in Gen X, we were very much expected to be beautiful or try, but to never feel beautiful. Does that make sense? Like it was,
Okay.
right?
Like, don't project that kind of confidence that you feel beautiful or
No,
whatever.
no, no, no. And definitely play small, be quiet, don't shine too bright, right? Like
Hmm.
if you shine too bright, it's going to make somebody else feel bad about not shining, that kind of idea. And that was coming at us from lots of different
Wow.
ways. And there was definitely a sense of we want you to look a certain way, but we don't want you to believe that you're beautiful.
Wow. That's so sad.
Right.
That's
And I don't
terrible.
think it was an active message. And I think
Hmm.
women my age would say that they received that message. You don't show up in the world and say, I'm beautiful. It's taken a lot of therapy for me to say it. Like, I
Yeah.
love the way I look. Somebody's going to be watching this and be like, oh my God.
Yeah. Whatever.
But I've pulled that thread and I've undone that programming. And I'm like, no, no, no. Life is better when you feel beautiful. But what do you think about the younger generations or younger women? Do they have that old idea that we have, that Gen Xers have, that we shouldn't feel beautiful?
It's crazy because I never really thought about having a lot of shame with the whole beauty industry or idea of beauty. And then one of the things that comes to my mind is I think of the generations that's younger than me, the
Yeah.
20, my two W-2 employees, they're 23 years old. I'm 10 years older than them. I love it though. I know a lot of people can think like, oh, the younger generation, oh, let me tell you about them. I look at it as something that's like, wow, they teach me stuff. I teach them stuff. I can learn from them. They're awesome. They're different. I embrace people's differences. When it comes to the beauty thing with them, I'll speak on what I actually see with them and then from my own perspective as well with my generation. With them, I see an undoing, like a non-programming, especially when they're in all girls schools where they just think, I'm showing up in my sweats. They don't really wear tons of makeup. And their version of put together is very different than what I feel like my generation was of being put together.
Yeah.
And they have no shame in that because
Yeah.
it's like for them, it's like, oh, I'm gonna wear maybe like a sweatshirt and jeans and stuff like that. Then I had to have some conversations with them on, hey, if we're creating this upscale environment, be yourself, have your own identity and your own style, but make it your style. You don't want to look like you just rolled out of bed, like,
Right. Have a style. Yes.
yeah, like even if sweats and stuff are your vibe, put on your makeup, make your hair look cute, but maybe you're showing up in a little tracksuit or something.
Right.
I don't feel like I've had a lot of shame in the time that I put into myself or the makeup. I remember back in 2020 or even 2018 and 19, makeup was huge. We were doing the contour, the highlight, the fake lashes on the day to day. That's what we were showing up as. And it was like, some of my clients would look at me and they'd be like, how long does it take you to do your makeup? It was almost like a shaming in a way that I didn't take it that way, but I look
Right.
back and I'm like, at that point in my life, that was an art form
Yeah,
for
I was
me.
gonna
Like,
say it was
know
artistry.
this.
I know. Well, you
Yeah.
taught me how to.
And you knew me in that time too. I was wearing purple, blue. I had a rainbow on my eye. For me, it was a creative art. My face was a canvas. And then I even had a coworker that was a bit older than me, and she would say, when you go on dates, does anyone? I was like, this is me. So I can't really speak for my whole generation, but I'll say that different time periods reveal different things. And I feel like people can maybe say certain things to you to make you strike a chord. But I feel like as long as you've done that inner work or feel confident within you and what you're trying to do, when you're not hurting anybody.
Right. So show up as you, no matter what, and
Yeah.
show up in a way that makes you love yourself. It's all fun. If you're the person who doesn't need or want to wear makeup and you feel beautiful with nothing on, then
Yeah,
that's how you show up.
absolutely.
If you're the person who wants to watch a YouTube video and learn to contour your face and do all of these things,
Then do
okay. I did
it.
the AI photos and I was like, oh, I like that girl. They look like
Yeah.
me with better makeup. And I was like, oh,
Right.
I wonder what
Totally.
color that
Totally.
was. Let me go shopping and get some. AI did this perfect, beautiful job making my makeup look all natural. So this has been wonderful.
Mm,
I think we could keep talking forever, but I want to wrap up for today. And I just can't thank you enough for sharing your entrepreneur journey, some life journey, and your opinions on beauty. I think that we do come from very different generations, and it's just really good to get different perspectives and know where people are coming from and
mhm.
understand, and then hold space for everyone, no matter where you're coming from. So, thank you for all of that.
Absolutely.
So tell us about how we can find you online. You have an incredible Instagram. So tell us where we can find you online.
Okay, so on Instagram, I'm just gonna go with the Little Black Door Salon. And then if you want to follow my personal one, it's Chelsea's Chair LLC. But just follow the Little Black Door Salon and you'll find me on there. And then we are also on TikTok. So if you type in the Little Black Door Salon, we're on TikTok too. And we are apparently on Reddit. So that's pretty cool. Instagram and TikTok are like our main deals. But I mean, I think we have a Facebook too, but who uses Facebook?
Right, right. What
Then we
about
we have a website.
website? Yeah,
Yeah,
website.
we have a website. So it's just www.tlbdsalon.com.
It's great. And you have your employees and other stylists in the salon that are also available. If someone would want to book with you or your employees, they would go to the website and there's a link there. Is that correct?
Yep,
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap up with a little quote. Beauty isn't just what's on the outside, it's the story of becoming. And sometimes the story starts in a salon chair.
Ooh, love it. So cute. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes. Maybe some of our listeners can tell us some hair stories, telling us how their hair journey has reflected their identity or their life journey. So,
That'd be awesome.
thank you so much for being here. And hopefully, some blondies like me will be reaching out. All right.
Sounds
Thank you,
great.
Chelsea.